Welcome to Ask Dr. Change. I'm Dr. Linda Ackerman Anderson. I'm happy to have you join me today to explore how to seriously uplevel your leadership and consulting to transformational changes, all through conscious change leadership. Welcome to today's episode. I have the great honor of spending time with Dr. Jen Frahm, who is the co-founder of the Agile Change Leadership Institute out of Melbourne, Australia. Jen and I have spent a little time on the phone, and I have to say, I'm very excited for this interview because we have a lot to share and a lot to explore. Jen, give us a little bit of a background and some of the resources you've created and that you offer through the Institute.
Fabulous. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me on this interview. It's a real privilege. So you're correct. I'm the managing director of the Agile Change Leadership Institute. We're a training and development company, and we create and provide on-demand courses, so online on-demand courses that are about helping change managers have greater impact and leaders feel much more confident with leading in an environment of continuous change. And so with that, I've authored 3 books now. I've got a 4th one coming. I have a podcast where we talk with people around what does it mean to work in the space of agility and agile and change. And, there's a blog, there's a LinkedIn newsletter. There's all the things, Linda, like when you have a lot of thoughts and only one mouth, you've got to get them out somehow. And for me, that tends to be writing for most of the time.
Yeah. 4 books. I'm impressed. That's a lot of energy. That's great, Jen. Well, share with us a little bit about how you came to be in this work, in this space. Tell us about
Yeah.
your story.
Yeah, it still makes me giggle, to be honest. So I had always been what I would describe as an informal change agent, in the sense that I was the person that whichever workplace I was in, people would go to and, sort this out. We've got this change happening. Of course, we didn't kind of use that language back in the 80s and the early 90s, but you knew that if it was a change, inevitably, I was the one who was connected with people in the organization and would explain it and, make sure that people felt okay with it. And then we fast forwarded to it was about 1996, I think it was. At that time, I was the product manager. So I had started off in marketing and advertising. And by this stage, I was the product manager in the veterinary pharmaceuticals. So think about flea and tick control. That was my domain. And I was in charge of launching Frontline Top Spot, which is a flea control, into the Australian market at the same time as the company was going through a global merger. And that was being run by, one of the mega big consulting firms. And I remember the day well. The general manager came into my office and he says, "You know how to market things to people. You can market this merger to our people, and I want you on the project team." And so that was my very first experience of being on a formal project team. And looking back now, I guess I was a SME, a subject matter expert. But my role morphed into this space of leading what it meant to be the change in the organization. Now, this was running in parallel. I was one of those really annoying older age students. So I didn't go to university until my late 20s. And so you would know, when you've worked in academia, the person that makes you the most uncomfortable is the older age student sitting up the back going, "But why, but what, but that didn't happen here." I was that person. Anyway, at the same time as we were doing this merger and acquisition, I was studying managing change in my undergrad. And so I had this beautiful petri dish that I could take what I was learning in the classes and apply it in real life. And I caught the bug at that point. So I got offered with when the company settled, I got offered with the role of the national product manager. And I was like, no, I need to work on project teams and I need to work in change. I know what this formal change space is. And, that started a pathway for me into the space of consulting and contracting and I did my PhD then in organizational change and really immersing deeply in the space. I'm very grateful for it.
Absolutely. Give us the span of the kinds of organizations that you've worked
Mm.
with. I remember looking at that saying, wow, that's quite diverse.
Yeah, yeah. So I have always prided myself on being agnostic. Part of that is because I love learning, right? So I get a real charge from learning about new industries and new services and new products and all those kind of things. And so I'd like to say that that has been part by design, that I haven't situated myself in financial services or fast-moving consumer goods. And what it has meant is that, yes, we talk about cradle to grave. I've worked with midwives. I've got a cemetery sector client. I've
That
worked with
won't be cradle to
engineers.
grave.
I, I've worked with nuns in terms of what does this look like? The religious organization look like when we've got no new novitiates coming through? What changes must occur to transition this convent into a community-based sector organization. So, yes, there have been financial services and, postal and telecoms and all those kind of things. But I've been really gifted by this breadth of experience across industries and types of change. Yeah, love it. Love
Awesome.
it.
Really, really awesome. I want to learn a little bit about your history entering the agile space,
Mm.
having been so neatly rooted in the change management space.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. So it's probably about, I think, 2012, around 2012. Yeah. So we're going back about 13 years now. One of the organizations I was working in was they would describe themselves as a Kaizen shop. So very much influenced by Kaizen methodology. And with that came lean and certainly had started to introduce more of these frameworks that were separate to conventional change. And a lot of the times, you will be aware there is often a tension between organizational development and change management. And if you come up with kind of a background through organizational development, but you've also worked in change management, it means that you start connecting the dots and you can see parallels. And so I had been working in this space where the organization was using these more faster methodologies, if you like, of delivering change and really visual management with what they were doing. The very next organization I worked with was introducing an enterprise platform, so it's a technology platform, but they were using agile methodology. So I was starting to see this shift across the industry where projects were starting to be delivered in this space. So I went off to Agile Australia, which was Australia's largest Agile conference. And it's a magnificent conference if anybody's looking for a reason to come to Australia. And and I went there and I sat in every session and I was really curious to go, what is this agile that these people are talking about? And in each session, I could connect something from my background in organizational development, or in change management or my organizational communication space. So for me, it was this real coming home and going, oh, I've been doing all these things all along. I just didn't know the branding. And so there was that confidence around capability, but then also connecting the dots and saying, well, look, the industry is clearly moving towards shorter runways on our change, leaner resourcing, the need to deliver much faster and higher uncertainty. I think that's a really big part of it. So agile or agility, whether we're talking big A or small a, lends itself beautifully to a space of high uncertainty. It gives you a pathway forward. Um, And I think a lot of the times in change management, we've really rested on this assumption that we knew what was going to happen, right? It's a bit delusionary at times. And so immersing more into the space of agility and agile became, for me, a necessity. And I often joke about change practitioners get into the space because we're control freaks, right? We're actually very uncomfortable with change. And so
Uh,
we seek to take control. And so agility for me was another control tool. It gave me practices and a mindset that helped me take control of situations that felt really uncomfortable as a change practitioner. Now, here's the beautiful thing about this, Linda. Once I'd started working in this way, it no longer was a control mechanism. It was actually an opportunity for freedom. Working in this space is incredibly liberating. You have the freedom to make mistakes and learn from it. You have the freedom to try new things. It's so incredibly liberating. I never want to work any other way. And
awesome.
so that's why, yeah, so we created the company, which was really to teach people how to work in that space.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So, you know, our work is more what we call change leadership, conscious change leadership. And
Mm.
you already mentioned the importance of having an agile mindset. How do you go about influencing leaders to recognize their own style, their own assumptions, their own approaches to how
Yeah.
they're leading their major transformations so that they can, I was going to say lean into, but I don't mean lean. I mean move into an agile space. How do you go?
Yeah. Um, that's a really good question. And the flippant answer is privately. You know, this work happens one-on-one. It doesn't happen in a training room. It doesn't happen in a training course. This is about having private conversations with leaders around where their discomfort lies.
Yeah.
Most senior leaders that I work with are very attuned to risk and they're very attuned to risk management. And fear is often the driver rather than opportunity in leading change. So for me, the secret is being able to work in tiny, tiny, tiny slices, right? To look at what is the core of that fear. What is one tiny experiment we could do to get some data which might support your fear or give you some comfort that you can let go of.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
so it's that succession of iterative little tiny experiments. Let's test that hypothesis that's behind that fear
Nice.
until you build the comfort and the confidence to let go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because for us, change leadership and agile change is very much letting go.
Yeah. Letting
Mm.
go to the unknown, the complexity, the all the factors that need to be aligned, a little like herding cats at times. And
Yes.
so if you're able to influence individual leaders, how about leadership teams that have to align behind
Mm.
how they're going to transform the organization?
Yeah. It is somewhat similar. There you've got the benefit of peer influence.
Yeah.
And so in the normal group dynamics of any leadership team, you're going to have one or two who are early adopters and enthusiastic. They're the ones that I want to prime with a little bit more of the ambitious experiments because they've got the courage to do that. And then they can play that back. We talk a lot about the practice of working out loud in Agile. And so that is really about um, working transparently,
Yeah.
working from a position of humility and really being able to um, show that the work that you're doing offers value to other peers. I'm working out loud because what I'm doing is actually kind of valuable to you and you probably want to know about it. But I'm doing it from a position where I'm not quite sure if this is the final version,
Yeah.
right? And I'm seeking your input because I expect you know better. Now, if you can get a senior leadership team comfortable with working out loud, it's like a domino effect. You really knock over that discomfort with with working through,
Beautiful.
agility.
It's a mindset, a radical mindset breakthrough from I have all the answers to I'm inquiring about what's possible. And so
Yes.
working out loud enables the inquiry mindset, and that creates a safety zone. Really, really
Yes.
powerful, really powerful.
Yeah.
So what's important in what I'm hearing and what you're saying is how much personal awareness, style awareness, communication awareness is essential for agile change to be successful.
Yeah. Now, Linda, you just mentioned the safety word, and I think this is a really important one. And it's a question I often ask leaders that I'm working with is tell me what safety looks like to you,
Nice. Nice.
right? That then sets up the parameters of how far and how fast you can work with that leader.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I imagine that some of them might look at you, it's like, what? Like, I haven't really thought about how to articulate that. But
Yeah.
doing so really enters them into a much more ready state for personal awareness, personal change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. So, what advice would you give to leaders? What three major or however many points would you like leaders to truly understand about this work?
The importance of grace.
Mm. Mhm.
When I look back at the leaders I've worked with, I wish I had have emphasized that more, and I emphasize it a lot now. The importance of being able, and I also talk about self-compassion, right? And I think there's not that great a distinction between grace and self-compassion and what we're talking about. But to lead change is can often be terrifying. It often requires a lot of courage. It can be high risk for leaders. And I think the sooner that you can get in relationship with grace as a leader, the better, the sooner you're a more effective leader of change. And I think that's a really, really important thing. The second is the importance of using data to inform your decisions.
Nice.
And I'm talking about inform your decisions, not drive your decisions. Because I look at data as something that comes hand in hand with your experience and your wisdom and your intuition, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really important thing for leaders to be doing is seeking out data, but also trusting their experience. They got into here for a reason. Third thing is the power of curiosity.
Mm.
Curiosity is such a gift to any leader. And it enables getting better data. It enables empathy. It's the gateway to empathy with your people. It's the it's the pathway to possibility in the organization when it all seems quite overwhelming. And so, I'm a big fan of curiosity. I love my curious cats in the organization.
That's great. One of the things that I really love, I can feel, my heart speeding up listening to what you're talking about and what you're focusing on. So much of what you just shared is the humanity of leadership,
Mm,
the
mm,
grace, the compassion, the inquiry, the curiosity, how you use data, not that you don't use data, but how you go about it. And so it aligns directly for the conscious part of conscious
yeah.
change leadership.
Mm,
So beautiful and so powerful and so essential for leaders today. You're
mm,
so articulate about that, so essential for leaders today. How else do we deal with the massive amount of chaos and uncertainty that we're all faced with?
mm,
I feel it in this country, in the United States. It's like,
mm.
hair standing on end. And you have some disruptions happening in Australia. And of course,
Yep.
we do globally as
Yep.
well. How
Mm.
about major guidance or insights you would give change consultants who are entering into and learning about the space?
Yeah. Um, I think the first thing I would say is kudos to you. You are in a very small minority if you are trying to enter into this space and learn. And I think that change practitioners and consultants and whether you're in-house or external, are remarkable for their lack of curiosity and desire to upskill, right? It's like I'm going to use we, because I kind of understand it. Like, we come into a field, we have the privilege of being quite highly paid. We have the privilege of having usually a lot of work, right? So it can be many years before you have to look for work for a lot of change practitioners. Not everybody, and obviously this is a very tight market, difficult time at the moment. Um, and so for a lot of practitioners, they don't actually start to look at what's next, what should they be doing, where should they be going, until they're actually looking at, oh, I'm finishing up in this role and what comes next. And so I think that immediately puts them in a space of overwhelm. And so the advice then to practitioners looking at what comes next is just take a breath. Take a breath, right? And take a stock take. Take a stock take of what your skills are and how well they have served you and your experience before rushing into what is next. Because I think it really is helpful to make a judicious decision around. There has never been a more prolific time for what comes next for change practitioners. You can head down big data, you can head down AI, you can head down neuroscience, you can head down design thinking, you can head down agile or lean, you can do a combination of those. So it's not that it's difficult to work out what to do. There's heaps to do. It's actually more difficult to get started for the sake of there is so much to do and you might be so far behind. So, I'm like, come from a position of strength, recognize what you've done really well, pick off one thing. What's one area that you want to start learning more about and really activate that curiosity
Yeah.
and that self-compassion. It's okay that you're learning again. This is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful.
Mm.
I'm reminded, I'll share this and then I'll talk about, I have some sadness about it. In the early days of OD development, and I was trained in OD in the early, in the 70s and 80s, aging myself. The emphasis on self as instrument, learning who you are, how you are, what your mindset is, how to interact, all of that, the self-awareness piece, the self-reflection piece was absolutely central to doing the work of OD in organizations. And over the course of decades, that has gone away. Now
Yeah.
it's, org design, it's training, it's talent, it's, all these other things that have left out the emphasis and the need for us consultants to truly, as you say, develop ourselves, understand, learn ourselves, be compassionate with ourselves as we're learning all the techniques and the models and the methods, et cetera. It's less about that. That's learnable and
Yeah.
more about us. And I hear that so thoroughly in what you're sharing. And again, it's music to my ears. I've been saddened that so little development has gone into the self-awareness space for change consultants, particularly of transformational change. So,
Yeah, there has been a rush. I see that there's this feverish rush to pick up a methodology, right? And, have the tools. And, we talk about when your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
right.
And yet, if I look at what has got in my way every time when I've run into trouble in an organization as a practitioner, it's inevitably me.
Yeah,
Right? I am the problem.
yeah, yeah,
And, it is either my biases or my ego that has gotten in the way of having higher impact or being more successful
yeah,
in that situation.
yeah. Just your mention of the term ego, I mean, that
Mm.
is baseline to self-development, to that we understand the power that our own egos have. We'll never get rid of it. It's always here. We're always working it. It's always
Yeah.
working us. And so, what's our relationship with our ego as we do this work in a highly complex and pressured environment? Really essential. Really
Mm.
essential. Yeah, that's great. So, given all of this, for you, what does success look like?
Linda, I think for me, success boils down to flexibility and autonomy.
Nice.
I have very strong autonomy drivers, and if I don't have flexibility, then I feel very constrained. My mental health suffers, and I'm in struggle town. And so with that, there's kind of bundled this capacity for joy. I
Yeah.
know I'm being successful when I can point to moments of joy in my week, in my day. Now, they might be glimmers, but that, being joyful is actually what success looks like over that. I mean, there's a lot of, again, I'm incredibly privileged, right? I've been working in this space for a long time. I've been able to have a lot of impact, the books, the speaking, stuff like that. And so part of that privilege is that I regularly get feedback from strangers, from people I work with as to how I've made a difference. And that is so beautiful, right? And I don't want to ever take that for granted. But that said, give me autonomy and flexibility and joy over those things that look like success, you know.
Yeah.
Um, if you want me to feel successful rather than look successful or she is objectively successful, it's about where is my autonomy and flexibility and joy.
Nice. Lovely. So, given the power of that what you
Mm.
just shared, how do you care for yourself? How do you take care of your own nourishment and aliveness in doing this?
Yeah, that's a lovely question, and it's one I like to ask my other people, right? And for me, I think over the years, I have gotten much better at being really mindful about my energy states and adjusting what I'm doing to my energy states. And so what that looks like is I know I am high energy at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the week, at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of the year, right? And it's just a downhill slide from there. But from a biorhythm perspective, that's where I have the most energy. And so I will consciously plan my work life around that in terms of, what I won't commit to on a Friday afternoon
Yeah.
is because I'm tapped out at that point.
Yeah.
Um, but we spoke about, autonomy and flexibility and being really mindful. And so that is kind of asking myself the question on a day-to-day basis, where is my energy at the moment? What should I be doing? Is it actually better that I go make a cup of tea and sit out on my porch for 30 minutes
Hmm.
or go for a walk?
Hmm.
You know, how do I protect the space for doing Pilates?
Hmm. Nice.
Tapping in with energy to go, do you know what? I need to pick up my paints at the moment and just splash out on a canvas. I'm really feeling called to honor that creative energy. I need to get out in the bush at the moment. I need to be smelling the eucalypt trees. So for me, self-care really comes back to being mindful about energy states and asking in this moment, what do I need? And it's okay. So permission, it's okay to need something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's okay to insist on it.
Yeah.
And again, I want to acknowledge, because as I say all that, and I can put myself in the shoes of a lot of the people who are listening, I'm ridiculously privileged to be in that position, right? I don't have children. So I don't have the demands of raising a family, which gets in the way of creating that space and things like that. So there's a lot of situations which make that easier for me to be mindful of my energy than it does perhaps other people. That said, it can be a micro moment. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a big thing.
Right.
It's just 30 seconds. What do I need right now
Right.
to feel
Beautiful.
better?
Absolutely. Yeah, beautiful. We are privileged. I feel the same way. And even holding myself that way, given the realities of what's happening in the world. It's absolutely essential, though, that we still have permission, we still have choice about how we're living each day and how much control we give out there to the dynamics occurring and how
Mm,
much self care we have going
mm.
inside of ourselves. It's absolutely essential. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, Linda, because this is something I've been thinking a lot about in the last couple of weeks. At this point in time in our life, with what is going on out there. Obviously, way more heightened in the US than Australia, way more heightened in Palestine, way more heightened in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And we can get really caught up in the collective hysteria and overwhelm of it.
Yeah.
And what I've been thinking about is we actually have tried and true known ways of dealing with crisis. We just haven't actually put a crisis management lens over our organizational or our change practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, self-care is something that those that work in crisis management know and, do the drills on. They that whole help yourself before you help others
Yeah.
is built into any crisis organization. And so maybe we've got some things that we can be looking at to bring into our field
Yeah.
that help us center and calm to be able to make informed decisions, to recognize that we do have choice, because I don't think people are recognizing that they have choice because of the overwhelm.
Yeah.
And so I think we've got some clues there in crisis management at the moment.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Mm.
One of the things that we see a lot of is we teach and experientially how to create ground rules for how we want to be together in
Mhm.
relationship, in teams, and to be able to actually use those ground rules whenever the team meets for project teams, how we want to run this project. And so trying to infuse some of those humane practices into daily life instead of meeting and getting right into the agenda,
Yeah.
but actually the breathing
Yeah, let's
about how we want to be
let's take
together.
7 breaths.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Definitely. I'm curious about what's next for you. Where do you see yourself going from here?
Well, me and you both, Linda, I'm really curious too.
Yeah. Ah.
It's really interesting. I think the short answer, yes, there's another book coming, there's a white paper coming, there's all those kind of things. But I think there's a bigger question around this. And it's been an eventful year for me. I lost my mother 5 months ago after I've spent probably about, 5 years very actively caring for her. And so now for the very first time, I'm being faced with space around me, which is prompting questions of what's next,
Yeah.
right? And I love what I do. 80% of my time is managing director of the Agile Change Leadership Institute, and it's about growing the business. And I'm loving that. We're not there yet, so there's still plenty of challenge in that for me.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking of getting this calling to what is the next act?
Yes.
What is, is it politics? Is it a startup of an NGO? Is it still in the change space? Is it still in the organizational space? I
Yeah.
do think there's a role there for me to play. Um, but that's a really difficult question for me to answer at the moment, other than to say I'm in a state of awareness,
Yes.
perhaps not analysis.
Yes. Or
To
action.
go,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Well, my wish for you is that you are spacious around this.
yes,
Give yourself that absolute time. One of the things that we're faced with is how to codify enough of our work so that we can give it to others to carry the
yeah,
work forward after us.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
turned 75. It's
yeah.
really time to pass off this work. It has been for a while, and so that's an emphasis. So how do you expect, is the Institute set up in such a way that other people can carry forward the experience and the wisdom that you have?
Well, again, fabulous question, and it's one we've been grappling with because Lena and I present pretty much all of the lessons, and we've started to bring in other facilitators. And so this is a question we've been asking ourselves is to what does legacy look like? Do people, after we pass, do
Yeah.
people still want to be watching, assuming that they're evergreen, do they want to be watching people who are no longer on this earth? Do we yes, it's a really good question to say the value of the lessons that we teach is firmly, 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 firmly in the intellectual property and knowledge and wisdom that Lena brings to the space, that I bring to the space. It is not generic. It is not cookie cutter. It is the fact that we have been boots on the ground practitioners, that we have been early adopters, and that we are voracious learners. And so, I always like to say, as I teach, so do I learn. As I learn, so do I teach.
Yeah.
This is the ethos of those courses. And so the succession planning and the legacy story, given that we founded this company, both of us over the age of 50, is a really good question. And again, I'm not going to be able to give you an answer because it's one we're grappling with at the moment. If any of your listeners have ideas.
You and I can talk about that offline. Yeah. Absolutely. Keep grappling because you have so much to share. Yeah, there's such wisdom woven through everything that you have shared today. It's just, really, really beautiful and powerful and impactful. So I have thoroughly enjoyed this time. I want to open up the space. Is there anything else you would like to share? Anything else you want to talk about your podcast? Talk about, the emphasis of the work right now, or any other advice? What would you like to share?
Oh, look, I always welcome connections. So if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you're more than welcome to. And you're right. I do share prolifically. So you will find that there are, you'll find the podcasts and the blog posts and the white papers and the books and all that kind of stuff. But no, what I would like my parting words to be is really drawing back to that notion of being kind to yourself as a practitioner, as a consultant, as a person going through change. I love change, right? It's how I'm wired. It is exciting. It serves me well, but it does that because I am compassionate to myself. I give myself grace, and I really value curiosity. And so my parting wishes to your listeners would be to really dial up that curiosity and the self-compassion and grace, and, have a fun time with change.
Have a fun time with change.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a fun time talking with you today, and I want to continue our connection. This has just been a wonderful birthing and opening of a lot of ways in which we relate. So I deeply appreciate your willingness to spend this time and share your wisdom with everybody. And I hope that our listeners will reach out to you to learn more about the relationship between Agile Change Leadership and how to do this work in the world. So thank you, Jen.
Linda, thank you so much. And thank you so much for your body of work and really being the pioneer in this space. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you gained some valuable insights for your work. Please send me your questions and challenges by going to askdrchange.com.